In a heartbeat, everything changes. A black teenager stands frozen, hands raised, a trembling dog at his feet as a white officer's gun glints in the sun. "Don't move," the cop screams, his voice laced with hate, his finger twitching on the trigger. The crowd holds its breath, phones recording, hearts pounding. Jamal Carter, a kid who only wanted to save a battered dog, now faces a system that sees him as a threat. This is the moment where courage meets cruelty, where one boy's fight for justice could end in tragedy or spark a revolution. This is justice for Jamal. In the heart of East Side, a sunlit urban neighborhood hums with life and struggle. Kids shoot hoops on a cracked basketball court, their laughter echoing through the streets. A stray dog, ribs poking through matted fur, limps along a sidewalk. This is Rusty, a mutt who's known more kicks than kindness. And today, his path crosses with 17-year-old Jamal Carter, a black teenager with dreams bigger than the block he calls home. Jamal wants to be a veterinarian, his heart always soft for animals. As he walks down the street, a backpack slung over his shoulder, his sharp but kind eyes catch Rusty's limping form. Jamal slows, kneeling beside the dog. He offers a piece of his sandwich, his voice gentle. Rusty's tail wags weakly, a spark of trust in his wary eyes, but his body tells a grim story, fur clumped with dirt, one ear torn, and fresh bruises blooming along his side. Across the street, a rundown house with a chain-link fence looms. Carl, a middle-aged white man, storms out, a beer can clutched in his hand. His face twists with anger as he spots Rusty. He yells, his voice harsh, calling the dog useless and worse, a string of curses spilling out. Rusty cowers, his tail tucked, eyes darting in fear. Before Jamal can react, Carl stomps forward, his boots heavy on the pavement. He grabs a rusted chain from the porch, swinging it menacingly at Rusty, who yelps and scampers back. Not satisfied, Carl lands a brutal kick to Rusty's ribs, the impact echoing like a dull thud. The dog collapses, whimpering, his body shaking as Carl looms over him, shouting about disobedience and how Rusty's good for nothing. Jamal's fists clench, his jaw tight. He stands, unable to stay silent. He calls out, telling Carl to leave the dog alone, his voice steady but edged with outrage. Carl turns, sneering, his bloodshot eyes narrowing at Jamal. He tells him to mind his business, that this is his dog and he'll do what he wants. Jamal steps forward, undeterred, pointing out Rusty's starvation, the bruises, the chain marks cutting into his neck. He says the dog deserves better. Carl laughs cruelly, tossing his beer can at Jamal, who dodges. Rusty crawls behind Jamal, seeking safety. Carl mocks Jamal, calling him a meddling kid who'll regret playing hero, and swings the chain again, narrowly missing Rusty's flank. With a final taunt, Carl storms back inside, leaving Jamal and Rusty alone on the cracked sidewalk. Jamal kneels beside Rusty, his hands gentle as he checks for injuries. The dog flinches at his touch, conditioned to expect pain. Jamal's fingers trace fresh welts and old scars, evidence of Carl's cruelty etched into Rusty's body. He pulls out his phone, snapping pictures of the dog's frail frame, bruised ribs, and the raw skin where the chain chafed his neck. He whispers to Rusty, promising to get him help. Later, at the vet clinic, Jamal's mind flashes back to another scene he witnessed weeks ago, Carl dragging Rusty by the chain across the yard, the dog choking as he stumbled. Carl had yelled, kicking Rusty for knocking over a trash can, leaving him tied outside without food or water for days. The memory fuels Jamal's resolve, he can't let Rusty go back to that hell. At the clinic, Jamal uses his savings to pay for Rusty's treatment. The vet, a kind woman with tired eyes, examines Rusty, her face grim. She confirms the dog's been through hell, malnourished, dehydrated, with broken ribs and infected wounds from repeated beatings. She points to the chain marks, noting how they've scarred over time, a sign of prolonged abuse. She praises Jamal for stepping in. Jamal nods, his heart heavy but determined. He posts the photos online, hoping to find Rusty a new home, unaware of the storm his actions will unleash. Back at his house, Carl scrolls through his phone, his face darkening. Jamal's photos of Rusty have gone viral, shared hundreds of times with comments calling Carl out for cruelty. Furious, Carl dials 911, his voice dripping with venom. He lies, telling the dispatcher a black kid stole his dog, claiming Jamal's dangerous, probably armed. He demands the police act fast. His call, rooted in spite and revenge, sets off a chain reaction in a town where trust between the community and police is already fractured. The sun dips lower as Jamal walks Rusty on a leash, heading home from the vet. The dog's steps are steadier now, a bandage on his leg. Sirens wail in the distance, growing louder. 2 police cars screech to a stop, blocking Jamal's path. Officers Thompson and Reynolds, both white, step out, hands on their holsters. Thompson shouts, his voice venomous, you black kid. Hands up now, or I'll put you down. Jamal freezes, his heart pounding. Rusty barks, confused, pressing against Jamal's legs. Jamal raises his hands slowly, his voice shaking as he tries to explain. He says he didn't steal the dog, that Carl was abusing it, that he took Rusty to the vet. Reynolds cuts him off, his lip curling. Shut your mouth, boy. We know your kind, always stealing, always causing trouble. Thompson draws his gun, stepping closer, his eyes cold with prejudice. You think you can just walk around here, taking what ain't yours? You people never learn. He spits a racial slur, his voice low but deliberate, meant to wound. Jamal's hands tremble, his chest tight with fear and anger. He pleads, mentioning the photos on his phone, proof of Rusty's injuries. Reynolds laughs, mocking him. Photos? Probably some gangbanger trick. You think we're dumb enough to fall for that? The officer's racism is blatant, their words dripping with disdain. Thompson circles Jamal, his gun still drawn, taunting him. Look at you, all tough with your hoodie. Bet you're hiding something, drugs, a knife, worse? He shoves Jamal's shoulder, making him stumble. Rusty whimpers, cowering. Reynolds chimes in, his voice cruel. Kids like you don't save dogs. You're out here starting trouble, making us look bad. A crowd gathers, phones out, recording the scene. A woman shouts for the officers to stop, but Thompson snaps at her, telling her to back off or she'll be next. His eyes never leave Jamal, his gun steady, itching for an excuse. Jamal's voice cracks as he repeats his story, his hands still raised. Please, just look at the phone. I'm not a thief. I'm just trying to help this dog. Thompson smirks, muttering another slur, this time loud enough for the crowd to hear. Gasps ripple through the onlookers, their cameras capturing every word. The tension spikes, the air thick with danger. Jamal's mind races, flashing to stories of kids like him who never got a chance to explain. He thinks of his mom, his dreams, Rusty's trust in him. He stands firm, but his heart pounds, knowing one wrong move could end it all. Then, a voice cuts through the chaos, Ms. Harper, a local activist and Jamal's high school teacher. Her tone is calm but commanding, demanding the officers stand down. She points to the crowd, their phones recording, and says she knows Jamal, that he's no criminal. She insists they check his phone for evidence. Thompson hesitates, his gun still raised, his face twisted with contempt. Why should we listen to you? Another one of them sticking up for their own, he sneers, his racism laid bare. But the crowd's murmurs grow louder, their voices rising in support of Jamal. Ms. Harper stands her ground, warning the officers their actions are being watched. Reluctantly, Reynolds snatches Jamal's phone, roughly patting him down first, muttering about checking for weapons. He scrolls through the photos, his face souring as he sees Rusty's bruises, chain marks, and emaciated frame. The evidence is undeniable, but Thompson's sneer remains. He lowers his gun slightly, muttering another racial slur under his breath, loud enough for Jamal and Ms. Harper to hear. She steps forward, her eyes blazing, and calls him out, pointing to the cameras. Say that again for the world to hear, she challenges. The crowd presses closer, their voice is a chorus of outrage. Faced with the evidence and mounting pressure, the officers cuff Jamal roughly, claiming they need to sort this out at the station. Thompson shoves him toward the car, whispering, "You're lucky we don't end this right here, boy." At the police station, Jamal sits in a cold interrogation room, his hands cuffed. Rusty is in a crate nearby, whimpering, his body still bearing the scars of Carl's cruelty. Thompson and Reynolds lean over the table, their faces inches from Jamal's. Thompson smirks, calling him boy again, his voice thick with condescension. You really thought you could play hero, huh? Kids like you don't get to be heroes. You're just another thug from East Side. Reynolds tosses Jamal's phone on the table, scoffing. These pictures don't mean nothing. Probably beat the dog yourself to make up some sob story. They laugh, their prejudice blinding them to the truth. They accuse Jamal of being in a gang, of stirring up trouble, of disrespecting decent folks like Carl. Jamal stays calm, repeating his story, but each word feels like shouting into a void. Their racism paints him as a villain, not a teenager who saved a dog. Outside, Ms. Harper rallies the community, organizing a protest. The viral post about Rusty, with its stark images of chain marks and broken ribs, has spread further, drawing media attention. Reporters swarm the station, demanding answers. Inside, the story takes a twist. A rookie officer, Jenkins, overhears Thompson and Reynolds in the break room, laughing about Carl. They reveal he's Thompson's cousin, admitting they knew Carl's theft claim was a lie but backed him to teach that black kid a lesson. Jenkins, horrified by their corruption and racism, leaks this to Ms. Harper, who shares it with the media. The revelation explodes online, exposing the officers' abuse of power and deep-seated prejudice. The community's outrage surges, with protests growing louder outside the station. Under pressure, the police chief suspends Thompson and Reynolds pending an investigation. Jamal is released, but the ordeal leaves him shaken, the officer's slurs and threats echoing in his mind. Ms. Harper takes him under her wing, helping him navigate the fallout. The vet clinic fosters Rusty temporarily, and Jamal visits daily, his bond with the dog growing stronger. Rusty, once flinching at every touch, now leans into Jamal's hand, his eyes brighter. Carl, facing public backlash and animal cruelty charges for his documented abuse, flees town, his reputation in ruins. A judge, moved by Jamal's courage and the community's support, grants him legal custody of Rusty. In the final scene, Jamal and Rusty play in a park, the dog's tail wagging as Jamal tosses a ball. Rusty bounds after it, no longer limping, his scars fading but still a reminder of his past. The community surrounds them, cheering, a symbol of hope and justice. As the sun sets, Jamal looks at Rusty, his eyes bright with determination. He's not just a kid from East Side anymore, he's a hero who stood up to cruelty and prejudice. Rusty, once broken, now runs free, a testament to compassion's power. This story doesn't end in the park. Jamal's fight exposed a truth too many know: prejudice can wear a badge, and justice isn't guaranteed. His courage and the community's resolve lit a spark. It reminds us that change starts with one act: saving a dog, speaking truth, standing tall. Jamal and Rusty are more than a boy and his dog, they're a call to action, a demand for a world where compassion triumphs over hate, where every kid like Jamal gets a chance to be a hero.